Hey everybody, welcome back to Bleeding Cool's weekly recap of The Walking Dead Season 8. My name is Ray Flook. I work the television beat for Bleeding Cool, and we're going to be taking a look today at Episode 2, The Damned. Let me start off first, two things right from the very beginning. One, I'm hoping you'll notice some better sound quality. We're looking to constantly upgrade these recaps, so I hope you appreciate it. We're going to be working on the video in a couple weeks also. And secondly, just to make you aware going to this, we don't get any updates on Negan, we don't get any updates on Gabriel, we don't get any updates with Maggie, and we don't get any updates with Gregory. Having said that, a lot happens. I know I've said this before, and I mentioned this during the live blog, but Greg Nicotero and Scott Gimple both said, especially episodes 2, 3, and 4, we're just going to go amazingly, insanely fast. So far, so good, living up to their promise, because a lot happens. I know I usually tell you about my cheat sheet that I have right here that I go by. This is one of those instances where I really need to do, because a scorecard was essential. A lot happened. There were barely any breather moments. Tell you about even some of the more tense moments as we go along, but again, we got a lot to cover, so I'm going to dive right in. We start off right from the very beginning as we get a little rundown on where everybody stands. We're introduced to Mara, who is head savior in one of the sanctuary outposts, and she's basically getting everything set and ready because they obviously know that Rick and the crew are waging their war against them. When all of a sudden Aaron and a group from Rick's army roll up full tank secure vehicles and just start laying down heavy artillery fire on Mari and the Saviors. So we've got that going on. Then we've got Jesus, Morgan, and Tara. They're at the satellite area. They're basically trying to work a plan on how to get into the satellite outpost. We got Carol, Ezekiel, and the rest of the Kingdom crew. They're still recovering from the grenade attack from last week, realizing that one of the Saviors has gotten away. And if he gets away, he's going to warn others, and things, again, proverbially shit hitting the fan if that happens. And of course, Rick and Daryl doing a little reconnaissance, doing a little special ops work to try and get to a special cache of guns that Dwight has made them aware of. And Dwight, so far, his track record has been pretty good. So this was all just set up from the very beginning, just to give you an idea of how intensely fast this goes. That was the very beginning before we're even getting, I think, even 10 minutes into the show. All right, I'm going to take this by sections as we roll along. So first, starting at the satellite, we have Morgan. Morgan's plan essentially is to cause a distraction and get the walkers over by the fence. That will cause the guards to start making their way over. That's why he emphasizes to Diane that she has got to take out those guards before they can make any kind of noise or anything like that. He says, don't let them fire a gun, Diane, because once one gun gets fired by them, it's over. So Diane's basically there to do her job. Tara and Jesus leads a group in to the main satellite area complex, taking out all the Saviors that are there and position themselves in front of rooms that they hear that the other Saviors are in. Jesus gives the signal. All of them essentially storm into the rooms and take out the Saviors that are there, except for Morgan and the two guys he's with, who there's a moment of hesitation, there's a moment of freeze, and it looks like apparently all of them have been shot. Because we see all of them hit the ground. We go from there, we go to outside. She's noticing, Mara, who, again, one of the lieutenants from the Saviors, is noticing that Aaron and the crew are not moving forward. They're not advancing, they're just laying down fire. Mara's taking this as a sign of concern or weakness, so she starts pressing the rest of the Saviors to take the attack to them. Aaron reminds everybody, look, your only purpose is to keep the Saviors there and in place. You don't have to advance on them. You just have to keep them boxed in. Now, my thought was that, essentially, okay, you're just causing a distraction while Rick and Daryl and everybody else can take care of what they take care of. But we find out pretty soon that there's a lot more going on to that. Eric, who is Aaron's boyfriend, notices Francine is in trouble and starts making his way to her. That's important, and we're going to find out in a couple minutes why. But we go back to the satellite, and we go into a situation where if you're fans of The Walking Dead, you just sometimes want to bash your head against the wall, because Tara and Jesus stumble upon one of the Saviors who's hidden away. His name is Dean. He comes with them a sob story about how, he was forced to do this, and they have his family and everything else, and what a surprise. Dean's actually a douchebag, and he basically grabs Jesus and is essentially mocking Jesus for being gullible, as we have blamed so many past late dead members of the cast. Gabriel was even like that for a while, even though, like I said last time, I've turned to like him a bit more. But Jesus basically gets taken by the guy. Thankfully, Jesus gets the upper hand, but it's starting to build this whole dynamic between Tara and Jesus. Tara essentially believes, like, look, the best savior is a dead savior. Why take a chance? She feels like she sides more on the Rick side, whereas Jesus feels like he sides more on the Maggie side, which is give people a chance, give them an opportunity, but if you need to, you take them out, but you always give them an opportunity first. Personally, having watched the show from the very beginning, it's, again, I understand, especially with a name like Jesus, I guess you kind of have to work that way. But time and again, we've seen what happens when people trust after the zombie apocalypse. Usually somebody ends up paying the price for it. So I tend to lean a little bit more towards Tara in this instance. Also, what we find out is that Morgan isn't dead, didn't get shot, or the armor he had took care of it, but it really, really lends credence to a line that Morgan uses at one point about how he can't die. It would seem so. However, Morgan's just kind of flipped at this point. Morgan gets up, Morgan grabs a gun, and in pure Chuck Bronson Death Wish style, just starts shooting any and every savior that he runs into. That gun is used up, he grabs another gun. He just keeps going and going and going. And it's pure Terminator mode for Morgan that we haven't seen in a long time. And we see this as a guy who is in clear conflict. This is a guy who does not want to kill, but has been put in a position where he feels like the only way for peace to be achieved is to kill. So we see how bad it gets as the episode rolls along. We're back outside, and we see finally the culmination of what's been going on between Aaron and his forces against Mara and the Saviors. And her line hits it perfectly. They don't have to move in on us. Shit. And she realizes at that point, all they were doing was buying time until everybody that had been killed there turned back into zombies, and they essentially just use those walkers as their own weapons. Unfortunately, Mari realizes it way too late, as one of the walkers just severely chomps down on her. But again, brilliant plan. It shows that, again, not that there's not going to be losses and not that there's not going to be problems, but Rick and his group have been here before, and he's got people who are believing in him, so that really does make them a hell of a force, even though, again, Saviors still have them in the numbers game. Okay, we haven't forgot about Carol and Ezekiel. This is where the famous fake it till you make it line comes from, because Ezekiel's telling Carol, like, look, you may think I'm being naive or everything like that with all these proclamations and hoity words that I speak, but I keep these people focused, I keep them inspired, and if that means I have to fake my way through something that I don't necessarily believe, for the bigger picture, it serves a purpose. And we see Carol starting to really buy into it as they're making way through the woods. They see blood on the trail, so they know that the fugitive, the Savior fugitive, is nearby, and they're hoping to be able to get to him again before he's able to notify any of the other outposts. Again, don't want to forget also about Rick and Daryl. So Rick and Daryl looking for this cache of weapons based on the information that Dwight had given them, information that so far Dwight's been really great at. They split up. Daryl still doesn't buy into Dwight, but considering what Dwight was involved with, and I'm sure the stuff that Daryl's still dealing with, we completely understand it. And I say again, I think we're going to have some episode of reckoning between Dwight and Daryl that isn't going to be pretty. We see Rick gets a Savior gets the upper hand on Rick, and it is a nasty, brutal fight that ends up with essentially Rick impaling the Savior on one of this spike that's sticking out of the wall. What's rough is we see he takes the keys out of the guy's pocket to open one of the doors that's locked, thinking there's guns in there, and instead of a gun, there's a baby, and the baby's name is Gracie, and we are left to imply that there's a good reason the guy was fighting so hard was that he was fighting to make sure nothing had happened to his kid. And it's heartbreaking to Rick, who realizes that he essentially just made that child an orphan and sees his reflection in the mirror. And you see in that moment starting to realize how, questioning himself with how far he's come at this point. How much more of himself is he willing to give up? to win this war? How much is going to be necessary? And and the Rick that Tara's believing in right now, we're not getting that impression. That may be the Rick that Rick is seeing right now. Okay, we go to Jesus versus Tara, and as I mentioned before, we see the Saviors surrender. Jesus wants to take them in, I guess handle them, whether it's prison camp, or something like that, imprison them, or prison camp, and try to combine those two phrases. But Tara, again, is of this mindset of, let's just kill them and get it over with, then we don't have to worry about them turning or anything like that, like Dean just did. Eventually, Jesus gets Tara to kind of back off and agrees with them surrendering, but not before Morgan goes out. And to be honest, I personally thought, while Jesus and Tara were arguing, I thought Morgan was just going to come out and just mow all of them down. I thought that's the mindset that he was in. But we did see that instance where he had the run-in with, I believe his name was Jared, one of the Saviors, who recognized Morgan, and Morgan had recognized Jared, and particularly from the instance where he recognized Jared from. And I, again, thought for sure he was going to blow his head off until Jesus, talked him down from it. But a tense situation that I think is going to get uglier. I think Tara is going to be taking out some Saviors before all this is said and done. We go back outside. We see that Francine was shot. We see Aaron noticing that Eric is in trouble and literally hops into a car and mows down Saviors to get to his guy. But we see that Eric's been wounded, and looks like Eric's been wounded very badly. And what I'm about to say is going to kind of suck. But on one hand, I feel really bad that he was wounded. On the other hand, it still kind of, though, makes it easier for me to go for the whole Aaron-Jesus thing. I'm not saying I'm trying to just pair them up because they're the two main openly gay characters, but because I think they'd also be a cute-ass couple. They're no Rashon, but they'd still be a cute-ass couple. Carol and Ezekiel. They find the fugitive. They're ready to kill the fugitive, but Shiva has other plans and takes care of the fugitive first. However, we do hear on the walkie-talkie that the Savior outpost was notified, but in pure King Ezekiel mode, he's ready to rally the troops. They're ready to take the fight to the Saviors, as they've been saying all along. And we see Carol not so much looking concerned, but with a sense of hope and with the possibility they could pull this off. My hope being is that Carol is using, again, Carol's sense and still seeing the optimism and isn't getting caught up in the cult of Ezekiel and again, taking things a little lightly more than she should. Finally, a big surprise, flashback for long-time viewers of the show, we see Rick getting once again, a Savior gets the upper hand on Rick, but this Savior is a little familiar, and it's Morales. From the very beginning of the series, one of the survivors that Rick had run into in Atlanta, there's a great ending line where he says to him, "It's over, Rick." And we're really left wondering what's going to happen, because Morales really looks like he is comfortable being one of the Saviors, but we don't know if this is necessarily negotiable or not. Some of the preview clips for Sunday's episode seem to give us an impression that it might be. So, and that's where things left off. It was a lot for one episode, and again, we get 2 more episodes coming up. The preview clips that we've seen online show the confrontation continuing between Morales and Rick. We also see Gregory finding his way back to the hilltop, and Maggie not exactly buying into the blinds of bullshit that Gregory's trying to peddle. I'm hoping Gregory just pays a painful price for what happened. Don't get a sense yet on whether they're going to find out about Negan or Gabriel, but again, thank you guys for joining me for this recap. I hope you join me on bleedingcool.com Sunday night for our live blog of episode 3 of The Walking Dead, Monsters. We're going to be starting it with the unofficial pregame at 8 p.m. Then we get started at 9 p.m. This is all Eastern Standard Time. So I hope you guys can join me. And again, if you have any comments, any thoughts, questions, anything like that, don't hesitate. Contact me in the social media information that's listed for me down below. Leave comments on the site. The only thing I ask is this: just be respectful. I'm not asking for everybody to agree with me. I'm sure there's a lot of things I missed or a lot of things you're not going to agree with. Again, we're a troll-free zone. We're a no D-bag zone. But again, please let me know what you feel. Please let me know what you think. And if there's things you'd like to see me talk about or include here, we'd love to hear you. Because again, we're a constant work in progress, but I always appreciate your support. Again, my name is Ray Fluke, television beat for Bleeding Cool. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you in the live blog Sunday night for episode 3, Monsters.